Okay, so really early this morning, they dropped a trailer for Black Widow, the Black Widow solo movie. And, spoilers, all that stuff, Avengers, Endgame. So I thought the trailer was fantastic. I want to get that out the way. I think the trailer looks nice. It looks solid. It's not doing anything, to break the mold. It's not doing anything that's mind-blowing in this trailer. It's just a standard teaser trailer sort of thing, giving you a sense of what this adventure is going to feel like and the kind of sense of, this feeling of what we're getting going into this film. My only thing about this movie is it makes me question how much can I really get invested when I know the fate of the character. It also kind of spoilers for Star Wars The Force Awakens if you haven't seen it. So, and the reason I bring this up is because in Avengers Endgame, Black Widow dies. And in The Force Awakens, Han Solo dies. But yet both of these characters are characters that have lived on and are about to live on, in the case of Black Widow, in a solo film. In a film just dedicated to that character themselves. And in the case of when I saw Solo, which was months and months. It was when it came to Netflix. I finally watched it, just because I was like, I'm not seeing that in theaters. Which the film wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. I rather kind of enjoyed it, if you will. But there was very little emotional investment on my part, especially when you know the fate of most of the characters in the film, and then the ones who are there, you're like, okay, I'm pretty sure most of you are gonna die by the end of this story, or just be completely irrelevant by the end of the story. And that's what ended up happening. And that's what I'm afraid of what's gonna happen with Black Widow. You have this very sweet and this very poignant moment in which Black Widow sacrifices her life in Endgame, and then here we are going into our own solo film. And we get to expound on more of her past, which is really interesting. But it's also, it's always kind of been that thing that allures her, that's been so alluring about her, is this mysterious, dark, secret past that she's had. And that's been very, captivating. But here we are, we're about to get that expounded. And I kind of have mixed feelings about it. Because, like I said at the beginning of this, I think the trailer looks good. I think the film looks very well shot. I really like the composition that they have going on. Some of the color palettes, the costumes. I love it. It's kind of, I don't know, almost gives you this like CW kind of silly vibe, the way they just really embrace the costumes in this trailer. And I don't know what it is, but I absolutely love the trailer, like the costumes in this trailer. I love the way that things are looking. I'm just trying to figure out how much can I truly get invested. And I think that's kind of I think that's the most exciting thing about going into this movie, is about how do you make this captivating, and then how do you make us invested in the characters around Black Widow? Because we know Black Widow's fate, but it doesn't mean that the person who's her sister might not end up becoming, Black Widow and all this other stuff and legacy and yada, yada, yada. But it just makes you really question how much Marvel can do on their part to truly, while you're in the seat, be like, oh my God, I can't believe I can't believe it's happening. You know what I mean? Water is great. But I think they have an interesting job here. And I think they have the interesting opportunity to make something that enhances Endgame. Because one of my biggest, gripes about Endgame is that they gave a lot of time for the film to breathe and grieve for the loss of Tony Stark at the end of it. Not much time was really given to grieve over Natasha. Someone who's an integral, amazing part to the team. And I feel like in a way, Black Widow has the opportunity to be a better send-off than Avengers Endgame. I just don't know how they're going to do it. And part of me thinks it's, the investment of, you just get so emotionally wrapped up in this person's past and finding out more about Natasha's past. And then you're like, oh my God, she went through all of that and then she died. And then it becomes more heartbreaking. Then you're like, oh, Oh, that just makes the ending of Endgame so much more poignant. And maybe that's what happens. Maybe that's what ends up happening. But that's a very hard thing to try to pull off. And especially knowing what Marvel, what they're going to want to do is try to plant seeds for, that sequel material, and plant seeds for, who could possibly become the next Black Widow. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like that kernel that's like been bothering me the whole time. And this kind of plays into the effect of, there's been rumors and reports and trades and all that stuff about Robert Downey Jr. actually making a cameo in this film, since it takes place during post-Civil War, but pre-Infinity War and all that jazz. And since it takes place in that specific time span, it begs the question. It really does beg the question of, will we lessen the value of people's contributions to the franchise if we keep adding on or tacking on these scenes after their story's over? If we keep coming back to these characters even after their storyline and their arc is concluded? What if we kept coming back from time to time with, Steve Rogers, even though his character arc's over? Maybe, yeah, sure, old Steve passing on some advice is fine, but what if we're doing more flashbacks to what happened when, he left to go live with Peggy, all the way up to when he got old and all that stuff? When we start dipping into the well of emotional nostalgia, what's going to be left for us storytelling wise, and what's going to be left for us to be invested in character wise if we keep on trying to go back to the well? I feel like a big hindrance to Spider-Man Far From Home was almost it was part of its dependence on Tony Stark's legacy and how integral it was to Spider-Man. Even though he's a character who, even in the MCU movies, he hasn't even mentioned Uncle Ben once. You know what I mean? So I think they have a very tricky job, and I think that Black Widow is really setting this foundation for how Marvel wants to move forward with using its legacy and using its characters. And it's a very important step that this film has. And I think that's what people are really overlooking when it comes to this film is this is an important thing to see how people end up responding to this and how Marvel handles it. I mean, because if this is done well, and if it's done in a proper and tasteful manner, I mean, in Marvel's case, they find a way to entertain the audience with the film. They find a way to satisfy fans with, character arcs and resolutions and all this extra bits. But they also find a tasteful way to wrap up things and add additions to the universe and make more money. And that's Marvel's perspective on it. But as fans, it makes me question how much can we really get invested? Because like I said, in my example, I'm only but so much invested in, I was only so much invested in the Solo film. I can only be so much invested in Obi-Wan Kenobi series like they plan to do on Disney Plus. When the character's fate, you can only be like engaged, but so much in like, oh, this is a really tense and interesting situation, but in your mind, like, I know what happens to this character eventually, so I know in some way, shape, or form this story is going to end up as insert whatever it is. It's very, very interesting. Like I said, I think the trailer's great. I think everything looks like it's going to shape up to be a fine film. I love the family dynamic aspect that they're going for. I really do enjoy that. Especially in regards of, her having this like mother-father figure in those two. Like, it seems like they're going through something really interesting. It's just a matter of, can they stick the landing on this? And, it's Marvel. I'm downing here. It's the people who've made the highest grossing film of all time. I get it. I completely get it. But it begs a question, what does this mean for us in the future? So, this is just a discussion that, this is just something that came to mind while I was watching the trailer, something I just wanted to bring up. And I wanted to know you guys' thoughts on all this, what you guys thought of the trailer, what you guys think of, Marvel double dipping on a dead character. You know what I mean? Like, how does that make you feel? And is that something you're comfortable with? And especially if this is like a testing ground for like Tony Stark, which would be like the ultimate double dipping because of how deeply emotional, his ending was in Endgame and how people are trying to push for him to get an Oscar nomination and all that stuff. it really does beg the question of like, are you guys really like 100% on board with this sort of idea, or like, kind of trepidatious, or you're just like, Daniel, you're kind of overthinking it. Who cares? It's a movie. Just watch it. But hey, these are the things that my cinematic brain thinks about, keeping you updated. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Daniel, and don't forget to get geeky.